Hello, hello, and Happy New Year. Thank you to all my subscribers for coming back and supporting the channel. And if you're new here, thank you for stopping by. For January, we are studying the Arctic and the Antarctic, and we're also going to be studying different animals in the Arctic and the Antarctic, and also tundras and glaciers and scientists. So let's get to it. The very first book is an excellent book. I'm starting off with a good one. It's The Search for the Giant Arctic Jellyfish. And this book is about a woman who is a scientist and a researcher, and she loves jellyfish. And there is like this mythical giant jellyfish that everybody in the field isn't really sure if it is real or not real. And so she leads a team on an expedition to the Arctic to find if there really is a giant Arctic jellyfish. And they come across all these different animals. And as she's looking, you kind of see, the jellyfish hiding from them, and they spend all this time looking for the jellyfish, and towards the end they're like, I don't know if we're ever gonna find it. And so they start to leave, and you find out if they do find the Arctic jellyfish. Now the next book is just called The Story of Snow, The Science of Winter's Wonder. And what I like about this book is it kind of tells you the life cycle of a snowflake, which I thought was really cute. But then it has realistic photos of snowflakes, and it tells you all the information you could want to know about snowflakes and how they're formed and why they're shaped the way they are, and that snowflakes can be formed in different ways. Like they can have a columnar shape, and it tells you why snowflakes have 6 points. And yeah, I just really love that they include all the realistic up-close microscopic photos of snowflakes. And then at the end it shows you how you can catch your own snowflake and be a scientist and investigate your own snowflake and what it looks like. The next book is called The Longest Journey in Arctic Terns Migration. So if your kids like birds, this is about the Arctic tern. And the book begins in Greenland, up by the North Pole, the Arctic Circle. And then you follow the Arctic tern all the way until she reaches Antarctica. And you see all the different places she travels, and the trouble that she has, and the type of food that she eats. And what I really liked about this book is that on many of the pages it has little parts of maps on it, which I think is great for geography. And you can show your kids on a flat map or a globe the different areas that the Arctic tern is passing by. The next book is The Arctic Fox's Journey, and it's by Wendy Pfeffer. I have had this author in some of my other book lists, and I really do like her, and I love the Let's Read and Find Out series. And so anyway, this is about the Arctic fox, and it's just super cute. The illustrations are very cute, and it just talks about the Arctic fox, and that the Arctic fox changes color when it turns winter. Its fur turns white, so it blends in with the snow. And it just talks about how Arctic foxes survive during the winter time, and that they sometimes scavenge, and how they keep warm, and how they eat. And yeah, it was a really nice book, and I think it gives really good information about the Arctic fox habitat and behavior. The next book is by Lindsay Moore, and it's called Sea Bear, and it is about polar bears. And so if you're studying polar bears, I think this is an excellent book. It's beautifully illustrated, and I love that in the beginning of the book it says polar bears are patient. And I just think that's a really good way for kids to think about polar bears. Because sometimes bears in general, they kind of have like a ferocious you know, people think of them as being ferocious, but here they say polar bears are patient, and it goes through the life of a polar bear and how they hunt and how they swim, and the difficulties of swimming and navigating from one ice floe to the next ice floe. And in the middle of the book, the polar bear has a little bit of trouble, so you're like, uh-oh, what's going to happen? But then at the end, the polar bear's okay, and you see him get on land, and it's just a very beautiful book. The next book is by Lily Williams, If Polar Bears Disappeared. And this is another book about polar bears, but it's also about just the ecosystem of the Arctic and Antarctic in general. And it talks about like climate and the ice melting and disappearing, and what would happen if the ice melted and there were no polar bears, and how that has a big impact on the ecosystem overall. And so if you're studying about ecosystems and polar bears, this is a great book. It talks a little bit about some of the other animals, but mostly about melting ice and polar bears. And I like this page. It talks about how the polar bears migrated and moved, and how they evolved to fit their new environment in the Arctic. And I thought that was pretty cool. But yeah, it just talks about polar bears and how they live, and I like the illustrations. The next book is called Greetings from Antarctica by Sarah Wheeler, and she is a researcher. There she is right there. And I thought this was like a great book because it's all letters from this woman, Sarah Wheeler, and she has pictures, different pictures of her team and the things that they bring on an Arctic expedition and how they live and what they do. And it's very in-depth for a first grader, but I think it's a great book for if you have kids of various ages, but I think first graders can sit and listen to some of this. And I think it's also great that they have these pictures. I know first graders would love to look at pictures from the Antarctic. I love to look at these pictures to see what it's like, because there's not many people that travel to the Arctic and the Antarctic, so it's pretty interesting to see. The next book is called Angela's Glacier, and it's by Jordan Scott, illustrated by Diana Sudika. I hope I said that right. But anyhow, this is a beautiful, sweet book about a girl named Angela, and she is born in Iceland, and this is her father. And her father, when she's born, takes her out to see the glacier, and as she grows up in Iceland, he always takes her to see the glacier and visit the glacier, and they go hiking up to the glacier, and he teaches her how to listen to the glacier. And as she grows up into a little girl and a young woman, she begins to venture out onto the glacier herself, but then her life gets kind of busy, and she's busy with studies and her hobbies, and she gets kind of lost a little bit. But then when she becomes an adult, she comes back to the glacier, and she comes back to the glacier because she said, like, there's something missing, something, she's just not sure what it is. And she goes to the glacier, and she finds the glacier again, and she listens to the sound of the glacier, and then her heart fills back up. And I just thought this was like the sweetest story. And it reminds me of someone on YouTube. Her name is Jonah. She's from Sweden. And so if you've seen her YouTube channel, you'll know what I mean, because Jonah listens to the ice also. This one is a fun book. It's called Glacier on the Move, and it's about a glacier and how glaciers are formed, and it's just really cute. And it's a short read, not a lot of wording, so your kids could help you read the words as you go. One thing that I thought was interesting, I didn't know, there are worms in the glaciers, and so that was very interesting. My daughter liked that too, but beautifully illustrated, and it tells you your basic facts about how glaciers are formed, which I thought was great. The next two books are about auroras. This one's called Arctic White by Dana Smith. It's about an Inuit family and their tradition of going out and spotting the aurora and what it's like as an Inuit family living in the Arctic or the Arctic Circle, and the things that they do. And there's some nice vocabulary in here if you need your kids to learn some vocabulary words, like what it means to trudge across the tundra, or maybe like what their outfits are called that they wear. And yeah, so it tells you a little bit about Inuit life, Arctic life, and then it also tells you what an aurora is. And this book is called Seeking an Aurora, and I actually like this book more than the Arctic White book because it's about a little girl who lives up near the Arctic Circle, and her father wakes her up in the middle of the night, and she's like, "What are you doing?" He's like, we're gonna go find something, come on." She's like, "What are we looking for?" And he's like, "An aurora." And she's like, "What is an aurora?" And so as they're walking to look at the aurora, she keeps guessing about what an aurora is, and he says, "No, that's not it. No, that's not it. You're gonna find out. We'll see it." And then at the end, of course, they get to see the aurora, and the little girl understands what an aurora is. And her father could not explain what an aurora was. He's like, "You just have to see it." And then once she saw it, she was like, "I understand. It's amazing." And then the last two books are our favorite books. This one was my favorite. It's called Blue Penguin, and it's about penguins. It's about a little penguin that's born blue, and he's the only blue penguin, and it's very unusual. And all the other penguins are like, "Are you actually a penguin?" And he's like, "Yeah, of course I am." But they thought he was different, and so they left him all alone, and so he was all lonely, and he didn't want to be alone, and he has this dream of a white whale who comes to take him away. And he goes up to a cliff and he starts singing this song to call this whale to him. And then one of these little baby penguins hears him singing, and she thinks it's so beautiful, and she's like, "Teach me how to sing." And he's like, "Okay." And they become friends. And then after they become friends and they start singing together, then all the other penguins, they're like, "Oh, your song's so beautiful." And the blue penguin comes up with a new song. And then at the end, the white whale comes to take the blue penguin away. But everybody says, "No, please don't leave. You're our friend. Stay with us. You're a penguin." And so he does stay. And I just thought this book was a lovely book about being different and singing your own tune, and then because you're different and you have a different way to live, other people appreciate that, and you can find friends. And I just thought it was a really lovely message. And then the last book is my daughter's favorite, and it's called The Snow Thief. Now, in one of my other book lists, we did have The Leaf Thief. It's by the same author, and it has the same squirrel and bird in it. And this time, the little squirrel thinks somebody is stealing the snow. And the little bird explains about snow and that nobody's stealing the snow. And the squirrel doesn't really know what snow is, and the bird helps him learn how to enjoy the snow and play in the snow. And yeah, my daughter absolutely loved this book. And as a bonus, it would not be a book list without Jan Brett. So this is Jan Brett Alice in a Winter Wonderland, and this is set in Alaska. It's the story about Alice in Wonderland. My daughter absolutely loved this book. Coincidentally, a couple of months ago, we read the traditional Alice in Wonderland book. Well, I read it to my daughter. She really liked it, and so when we saw this, we were like, we got to get that. And so, of course, my daughter absolutely loved this book, and it has Arctic and Antarctic animals in it, and a little girl who I believe is from Alaska. And yeah, it's just Jan Brett's version of Alice in Wonderland. And I think she did an excellent job taking a somewhat difficult book for young readers to understand and condensing it into this beautiful storybook that was very easy to understand. And yeah, we love it. So I hope that you liked this book list, and I hope that you can incorporate some of these books into your learning, and we will see you in the next video.